Live in three, two, one. We are live for a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Weintraub. How are you doing this week, Seth?
I'm good.
All right. A little different decor for me, a little different setup. I apologize. I hope that the audio is pretty good. Um, I'm not at my usual setup right now, and I forgot I brought my traveling setup with me. I just forgot one little adapter that changed the whole game, so I don't have my microphone. But I'm using my gaming headset and microphone right now, so hopefully that is going to be enough. And but we have plenty of good electric news for you this week, and we're going to start out a little bit, sort of more like high level discussion about something that we're starting to see, not exactly happening just now, but maybe the first few steps of the first real EV price war. That would be interesting if it does indeed is happening, and I just posted an article on it today that's starting to get some traction. That implies that Tesla sort of started it with that big price drop this week, and Tesla didn't necessarily intend to start a price war. It was kind of, I mean, if you believe what they said, as we discussed last week, they said it's due to cost improvement and everything, but we know that they needed it. They needed the price reduction just to accelerate some demand here, and it's working. We just reported earlier this week that Tesla is seeing unprecedented demand in the U.S. So we have some good sources within Tesla in the U.S. and they told us that many stores are seeing the record new orders coming in for a single week. So that's awesome. They're even thinking if it keeps going at that rate, they believe that they're gonna run out of build slots for this quarter. So when we're talking about not even 3 weeks into a quarter, this is special because normally, as you know, like Tesla allocates certain builds. Like they calculate their production capacity for a certain market. In the U.S., it's only Fremont factory and Gigafactory Texas now. So they calculate that capacity, how many of which they're going to be exported, how many are going to stay in the local market, and then they start taking order for that allocation. And normally that doesn't fill up until the end of the quarter, but in this case, it might be already filled up or about to in the next few days. So this is very exciting for Tesla. And obviously, this is a combination of the giant price drops and these Tesla being eligible again to the federal tax credit in the U.S. So those two kind of happen together, resulting in the cost of acquisition of a new Tesla vehicle greatly being greatly reduced. We discussed the pricing last week, so we won't get into the details on that. But we've seen over the last few days and over the last week since Tesla announced those price drop, there's a few companies that already have to reduce their price. Xpeng, most notably, one of the Tesla's closest competitor in China, and they they saw, based on the early data coming out of China, they saw their order drop significantly after Tesla reduced their price. So we're using China as a good example because Tesla reduced their prices in China a week earlier than they did in most of their markets, including the US. So it's sort of like a preview of what might be coming soon in other markets, including in North America, which obviously we focus more on on Electrek. So Xpeng dropped the prices most likely in response to Tesla. We saw VinFast also, obviously a new company, but with competition in similar segments as Tesla, also announcing discounts to counter the Tesla effect with the prices. So we might very well be seeing like the very first steps into this EV price war that could be happening. So I think it's worth exploring like what could be the effect on the market with that. And obviously, why did I start my title with Tesla started an EV price war that it will likely win is because there's one main metric to follow in a price war is who can absorb the price reductions better, and who can do that is who has the best gross margin and ultimately the best net profits. And Tesla is by far the industry leader, excuse me, on that front. In both cases, actually, like in gross margin, they have massive gross margin here. So Reuters put together some data points here, putting some of the biggest companies together, and Tesla obviously leading in gross margin by a wide margin, with Neo actually the closest. So I'm not the one covering Neo, so I don't follow them too closely. But this is pretty good margin, $8,000 to $10,000 per car. Um,
Yep.
Volkswagen also. Well, no, actually, excuse me. It's not. Uh, it's not. The, it's the average compare from 2020 to Q3 2022. So now the average is 10,000, while oh no, it's the other way around for Neo. Excuse me, this is a bit confusing. The chart is not the best chart I've ever seen. Uh, Neo actually went down. His gross margin went down over the last 2 years from 10,000 to 8,000. Tesla went up from 11,500 to closer to $16,000. Obviously, that was due to the price increases that were steadily coming in over the last 2 years. But they're gonna take a hit on that. Like how much? It's gonna be hard to tell because we don't have the exact mix of models that Tesla is selling. But I would assume that it's gonna be close to like a 15-20% hit on the gross margin due to like the Model Y most likely being the Model Y long range being the best seller right now, and it is the one that saw the biggest price drop at $30,000. All right, BYD also saw a significant drop in its gross margin from $15,000 to $5,000, but still one of the top four leaders. Then you can see the other like $3,000 to $5,000 is what you see from the big companies like Toyota, Ford, GM, Hyundai, and so forth. Now you go to net profit per vehicle, and that's even a bigger lead for Tesla. Of course, Q4 2020, that's when Tesla just started making profits. So $1,500 per car shot up to almost $10,000 per car in Q3, by far the leader in the industry. And then you see GM, excuse me, making $2,000 per car. So that's the closest competitor to Tesla in net profit. GM at $2,000 per car versus almost $10,000 for Tesla. So that's where you can see where there's margin to absorb those big price cuts, and that's Tesla having those margin. Everybody else basically has no room to decrease their pricing here. And then you look at Xpeng and Neo, obviously not looking good in the very, very negative net profits, but still, I was still impressed with Neo having a positive gross margin. Still a young company, still growing up, still deploying service centers, still expanding in new markets. All of these things cost you a lot of money that you won't see any return on for a while. So it's kind of normal. But this is might be one of the first, like we've been talking about this for years, Electrek, and for a long time. A lot of people thought we were kind of crazy and everything. It was like there's some giants that will fall from this transition to electric vehicles, like some big company that will not survive. And this might be one of the like chapters in the story where you start seeing that happen more in the industry. Like you start seeing the cards fall in place. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, Tesla has all their ducks in order basically. They've 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they were already thinking about this situation. They've been ramping up their battery production, which is kind of the big bottleneck in the industry. So nobody can make as many batteries or order as many batteries as Tesla. They've got their 4 factories now, kind of go almost at full strength. Obviously, there's more vehicles in the pipeline, but right now, I think they've spent basically the last 2 years almost entirely focused on ramping up Model Y and Model 3 production, mostly Model Y,
Correct.
which is like, the sweet spot in the world. And I think a lot of people inside and out of Tesla think the Model Y is going to be the biggest selling single vehicle next year in a lot of almost
This year,
a lot of markets.
this year,
This
probably.
coming year,
Yeah.
in 2023. So Tesla is well positioned. They might, I mean, as you said, they might not have been thinking price war but maybe they were like, look, we can make electric vehicles less expensive and and more of them than everybody else combined, really. And why not take advantage of that situation while we have it? I mean, before they weren't getting the $7,500 tax credit, and now they are. They had run out. The GM had run out as well, but you know, as it stands now, it's like they've got a lot of like headwinds, or what do they call that in investor talk? Like they
Momentum.
they've got the winds are going in the right direction
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
them. So why not? I mean, I feel kind of like there's so much electric vehicle demand at the current moment that nobody's really freaking out. But once all the demand's kind of filled, people who are thinking about buying a Mustang Mach E for 60,000, and all of a sudden a Model Y for 40,000 shows up. That's kind of like, think about that a little bit. Um, so yeah, I think there's going to be some issues ahead, and then of course there's the Toyotas and Hondas and Nissans of the world that have kind of just let the last 10 years go by and are just
Hmm.
coming out with like their first or second generation EVs. And they're coming in high priced, low volume. They're not gonna do well when there's proven technology out there with Teslas and some of the other brands. Um, so I agree. I don't know if everybody makes it out of this. I mean, companies like Mazda, Subaru, the other thing, like with companies like Subaru's, focus is all-wheel drive. They make really good all-wheel drive internal combustion engines, but like now it's not rocket science to have all-wheel drive, efficient all-wheel drive with electric vehicles. So what is Subaru's advantage now? Like everybody's doing all-wheel drive. So I don't know, a lot of factors, but I agree with you strongly that somebody's in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people have trouble, and the mind share thing is a big part too. So when you're coming from a Tesla, it's hard to switch to something else too. So if you can get them, like a lot of people, in early, and place the order right now, because that's the other thing that people haven't been thinking about too much, is like when Tesla increased the prices, they did it incrementally over a long period of time, and the they did it while they still had a massive backlog of orders for the Model Y specifically, also for Model 3 in a lot of markets. So what did that do is that Tesla delivered those vehicles over a long period of time, and so even though they were increasing prices, they were still delivering a lot of the cars that were placed on order before those price increases. So these lower price is a time to order and build a giant backlog, and then Tesla can afford to maybe, like, again, gradually increase prices where they need to, if gross margins are tighter and on some specific trims and models, and then still enjoy a huge backlog of order that they can deliver, while still squeezing in a few new orders at higher prices. That's basically what happened over the last 2 years, and Tesla might just have hit the reset button. So I think this is going to be a massive problem, unless that, like I said, I wrote in the post, there's some wild cards still, like the biggest one obviously being Elon. Like, we don't know. We don't know what he does with that. Also, but the Cybertruck might be the big difference too, in terms of like how smooth they can bring it to production. So if it's a smooth production ramp, goes to gross positive gross margin quickly, and volume production, this is potentially like a game changer, obviously, and would put a lot of pressures on company like Ford with the F-150 Lightning, which I have my doubts if they're making any money on it like right now, and same thing maybe for Silverado electric coming and so forth. Those are going to be like, because historically speaking, for US automakers, namely Ford and GM, the big profit centers have been the trucks. So if you start like taking like big chunks of that's not a good sign. Like 2008, 2009 all over again. Especially if we head back into like an economic downturn on top of it, that is just a cherry on top of the cake.
Yep.
Like I think I think Tesla is sitting pretty with the I don't know what $20 billion they have in their pockets right now. This is the
Right.
big difference maker too.
Yep. Lots of cash. They can weather any storm.
Yeah. All right. Tesla, we were noticing sort of a ramp up in communication as Elon Musk became more controversial. So we discussed this last month a little bit when we I wrote an op-ed like begging Tesla to launch a PR department again. I mean, in the U.S. and a global PR department, because some markets do have PR department. Some Tesla has some PR department in some markets, like there's a strong one in China actually, a decent one in Europe, but in the US and as a global organization, Tesla does not have a PR department, which is just ludicrous. And I won't go into all the reasons again, except for the this one that's more like the newer reason is that everything since the dissolving of the department, everything has been funneled through Elon Musk. He has been a de facto spokesperson and a de facto face of Tesla. And as he become more controversial, especially more political, which is not exactly the norm for big tech CEOs for good reason. It's just bad business to be too political.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's in the U.S. There's like a very sharp political divide. So
yeah.
automatically, no matter what it is, anything you say political is going to
Mm.
piss off exactly half of the populace, or very close to
Yeah.
half.
And that's a problem in itself that like the US should definitely work on. And if that wasn't the case, maybe this wouldn't be so much of a problem. But for
Right.
now it is, and no clear solution in sight, at least not in the short term. So Elon doing what he's doing right now is a big it's a bad move for Tesla. And then when I say that like big tech CEO are not really political, I know that a lot of people like fight back, like claiming that oh yeah, but like well, like all the Silicon Valley people are all woke and everything, and like I mean. There's difference with like having some like consider like woke policies that people talk about and like openly calling for voting for a certain party and calling the other party the party of eight and all that like this is completely different. Like he's actively alienating a big part of the population, and that's just bad business. And we've seen that affecting Tesla. We've seen like in terms of surveys, in terms of demand, like these things started to affect Tesla. There's no doubt about it. So we suggested that Tesla, because of that, Tesla should build itself a stronger voice of its own, not directly linked to Elon. So using its personal social media instead of everything going through Elon's Twitter, more direct communication with customers, more blog posts, and all that. Basically, things that the PR department was doing before. And we're starting to see things happening. So basically we internally we noted that Tesla was like doing a lot of more of these threads here. So these threads have been popping up on Twitter, on Instagram, where Tesla is highlighting specific features, existing features, because Tesla always obviously used to post on social media and blog posts new features being launched, uh, new products obviously. But now Tesla is just using its voice to highlight existing features and doing more direct communication. So I tried to see if actual data would back this up. And sure enough, on Twitter, as you can see, like until around October, Tesla was not posting that actively. And then it shot up about 300% on an average over the last 4 months. So that's I think is notable. Same thing is happening on Instagram. Like a lot of what you see on Twitter is also shown on Instagram. On the stories though, so it's not as easy to quantify in terms of data, obviously. And the blog post too. Tesla had 2 blog posts in 2022 before September, and then after September they had 6 blog posts. So that's Tesla sometimes went like a whole year without like with 1 or 2 blog posts. So that's a big change too. So a lot more direct communication with customers, and not officially like distancing themselves from Elon, obviously, but at least building their own voice that doesn't have to go to through Elon. Because I mean, a lot of people were like a lot of Tesla fans used to follow Elon's Twitter for Tesla news, and now like those Tesla news on his Twitter feed are far and few in between, and you
A lot
have
of
to
noise.
sparse. Yeah, a lot of noise, a lot of conspiracy theory, a lot of just whining about the woke mind virus and all that. Like just it's like I said before, I'm gonna be back on the Elon bandwagon when he's gonna seem. I'm not saying that he's more excited about it, but if you follow his Twitter, sometimes it seems like he's more excited by the next QAnon drop than than the launch of the Tesla Cybertruck. So
Right.
that's what I want to see happen, like some excitement for Tesla rather than political
Yeah,
bickering.
it's almost it's frustrating because he kind of kidnapped the Tesla communications, and
Hmm.
by putting it in his feed of craziness, like tons of people, including I think you and I,
Hmm.
have to look at everything he's talking about, which is a lot of craziness, and then to find those few, Tesla news bits, which would be like, maybe we should create a Twitter account where it's Elon tweets, but only Tesla related.
Oh, that's smart, actually. Yeah. Did you just come
All
up
right.
with that?
Yeah,
Really?
write that down.
Someone by the time
Just
this show is
yeah.
over and we can actually do something
So
about it, someone
just
would have done it.
send me a link.
Yeah.
Whoever does it,
Yeah.
send me a link. I want to get on that.
Yeah, we'll all
The
follow that,
bot.
and then we'll promote it on the next Electric podcast episode.
Yep.
That's the deal. All right. Speaking of communication, like that would be one of those things that Tesla should have communicated to buyers here. Oh, clandestinely. I didn't write that. Oh, sorry, someone changed my headline here. Clandestinely. Does that work?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
might have been
Anyway,
me. I can't remember.
I think I had like sneakily or something like that, which I guess. Uh, yeah, it's the brakes on the Model Y performance, which I would argue is the biggest difference between the Model Y long range and the Model Y performance, because you basically have the same powertrain now. You have the bigger wheels, but I mean that's a plus, that's or a negative depending on how you look at it. I mean, right now I have the 20-inch wheels on my Model 3 Performance in Quebec in the winter, and I can tell you that I'm tired of it. I'm really tired. I would kill for some 18-inch wheels right now, but which I can because of the bigger brakes, but that's another story. Uh, so yeah, the bigger brakes are the bigger difference. So there is of course the faster acceleration, faster top speed, but those are just software locked basically. So the powertrain is the same, but you do sort of need bigger brakes in the rear in order to um, handle that higher power that is unlocked. So yeah, uh, they had this big ass Brembo brake, like the very like top notch, top of the line brakes, or caliper, I should say, in the back. In the front, it was always the same. But ZEV centric, with they build accessories for Tesla vehicle. They are the one who found this out here, that Tesla actually changed the Model Y performance brakes in the back for smaller brakes, not as thick brakes. The rotor is 2 millimeters, not as thick, and the calipers are smaller, and no one noticed it. Like, we don't know exactly when it happened, too, obviously, but based on ZV centric, what they saw in terms of their customer vehicle and their own vehicles, it happened sometime before September, and or at least the first vehicle that started showing up with these new brakes were our Mendo brakes. Started showing up in September, and the weird thing about it is Tesla put a cover on them to sort of hide them, hide the smaller caliper, which is kind of misleading. It is deceptive. Like, you wouldn't know unless you. Well, I mean, the kind of way, if you really dig into them, you can actually see, but it's a lot harder to realize whether you have the new brakes or you don't. So that's kind of a bad move, and ZEV centric kind of is literally asking Tesla to send them the Brembo brakes, because they paid the same price for it as they would if they had the brakes on them, and now they don't. And Tesla never communicated the difference. They never said anything about it. So it is good old Tesla communication right there, not telling you anything. All right. Um, Oh, we're talking about Tesla price decreases, but there was a price increase this week for the home charging station, the Tesla wall connector. So that was kind of a surprise here, because Tesla actually dropped the price of that thing a lot while they were increasing the price of the car, and then they also took it out. Like they made they made it more not necessary. They made it more useful by removing the mobile charger that came with the vehicle. So now you kind of want a home charging solution, because a lot of people were just using the mobile charger at home. You don't like That's what I was doing here uh, on my condo. I was just using the one that came out of the car.
Same.
But now that they took that off, either you buy one of those or you buy a wall connector at home, and Tesla had decreased the price to $350 in December, which made it like the lowest ever, and made it also the cheapest 48 amp level 2 home charger that has Wi-Fi by far. But now this week they decided to increase the price by 20% to $425. So now it's even higher than it was before December, before the big price decrease in December. So not sure what Tesla is doing here. Maybe they're trying to recuperate some of the gross margin through the wall connector. But obviously that would make a big difference. And of course, we reported also last month Tesla started selling it to Best Buy for the first time to third parties, and the price went up at Best Buy too. So I don't think that you're gonna.
There was a lag as soon as the
Yeah,
I think there was like maybe like a 3 or
yeah,
4 hour lag, and I know a lot of
yeah,
people made the move to go on Best Buy as soon as they saw it going up. But
yeah.
it's still,
Maybe
I mean,
some.
it's still the best value out there. I don't know what the kind of thinking was there. Maybe I think those J adapters that you get that you can charge non-Tesla EVs with are like $75. So I think maybe some people were doing that instead of buying the other product or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be a solution. But yeah, you're right though. It's still like the best value. Even at $425, it's still the best value. All right, this is interesting. I don't know if you remember this. We talked about this a few months ago. The battery passport. So this is an initiative from the Global Battery Alliance, and they are trying to build a system to track every material inside the battery, which is obviously a problem right now for the federal tax credit that requires a percentage of the battery materials to come from certain countries. So now it's going to be a lot easier to trace, but also it's going to be just a better a better understanding of where your battery comes from down to every single material, because that has been basically an attack vector from EV naysayers that says like, oh, like the mining is worse than burning gas and drilling for petrol, which is obviously nonsense. But if we can track every material better too, it's going to be easier to show exactly what is the impact of building a battery. And then obviously so also when you recycle it, and the battery passport actually is going to account for recycled material in it. Now it's nothing, obviously, because most batteries are still in operation, so it doesn't have much of an impact. So what happened this week is that the first proof of concept of that battery passport is coming out, and Tesla and Audi are the first two to participate in it. As we previously reported, a Tesla executive and an executive from the Investment Quebec group are the two people leading that battery passport project. So it makes sense that Tesla is the first one to try it, though Tesla only did it for cobalt. So they put together this little tracker here that shows like only 1% of the battery materials are accounted for. Again, only cobalt, so it's nothing. So this is for a battery pack that Tesla builds in China. So 78.05 kilowatt hours. So it's the long range, probably long range Model 3, long range Model Y battery pack, using chemistry NCM M50. So it's a nickel, cobalt, manganese chemistry. And the battery cell is built by LG Energy Solution in China. So already a lot of interesting little tidbits of information. When you go to materials, that's where like the information gets a little bit less, because again, it's just cobalt. So yeah, cobalt. 100% of the cobalt from that battery comes from Glencore Komado Copper Company, which is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a problematic area for cobalt. But here's the good news. So like that's one of the things that like that again, I like to use the word attack vector. That's been an attack vector for people. They've been saying, okay, like cobalt all comes from artisanal mines in Congo where you use children and you use people in terrible like mining condition, and like that's true. That's true, and that's a real problem that needs to be addressed. However, most of the cobalt does not come from those kind of operation, because it's not an efficient way to operate a mine. It's just not. And the Glencore Kamado mine is not like that. It's nowhere near an artisanal mine. It's a very modern. I don't know if I would go as far as saying very modern, but compared to artisanal mine, it looks extremely modern. But it's EV machinery. It's qualified people working there, and hopefully well paid. I don't know exactly the salary there, but like if you look at the mining operation, it's not an artisanal mine. So that's at least that's good. Audi also participated in it, and Audi had a little bit more information in theirs. So it's about they didn't say the model, but based on the information here, I would assume that's 114 kilowatt hour. That would be maybe like the what's the new
GT maybe.
yeah, maybe the GT. You're right. The cell are produced in Hungary by Samsung. That's interesting. They use an NCA chemistry, so a lot of cobalt in that too. And then you look at the materials. So now you have both cobalt and lithium. So it accounts for actually 10% of the materials in the battery pack. So a lot more than Tesla was doing. This I'm not sure. Like it was review in progress, so it's not exactly clear. But because they split up in a different percentage of cobalt, but it all comes from the DRC, so the Congo. And LCM means large scale mining. So I guess they don't tell you the exact mine here. So this is, I assume the review in progress will tell us the mines, and it's going to come for like 3 different mines. That's my understanding from this, but they haven't confirmed them yet. And LSM, I would assume that it's lets us know that they can at least confirm that it's not artisanal mine. But obviously, I would like to know the actual names of the mines so that we can confirm that for ourselves. Same thing for lithium, LSM, Chile. They don't tell us the actual supplier here. A lot of lithium mining in Chile, obviously. Well, it's obviously. Not everyone know that, I guess. All right, moving on from Tesla news. And we're 30 minutes into the show. If you do enjoy the show, please give us a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, notification button, all that good stuff. It helped the show tremendously. Of course, only do it if you do like it. And if you're listening on your podcast app right now, you enjoy the show, please give us a 5-star review. That helps the show tremendously. It takes a second to do, and we read every single one of them. And if you have any questions for us, you can put them in the comment section right now, because we are live and we're going to take your questions when we are done with 3 more news items that we want to discuss real quick. And then we're going to get into your questions in just a few minutes. All right. The new Volvo C40, XC40 EVs are the new, well, I guess it's the 2023 version.
Yeah, it's hard to say right now.
Yeah.
It's like right in the middle of the model year.
Yeah, it's kind of late for a 2023 version. But they are being released with improved range, faster charging, and a rear-wheel drive option. So not much is new in terms of the refresh. Like there's a small refresh, but you would recognize the C40 and XC40, which obviously the only difference is the, what do you call that? Like the sport, the coupe back, the sports coupe back, I guess. That's sports back. Here you go. So the let's go with the EPA now. The single motor gets 240 for the XC, 245 for the C. If you go with the single motor but extended range, you go up to 270 to 75. So that's decent increase.
That's big, yeah.
And why don't we have the twin motors? Well, I mean, if you look at
maybe it hasn't been rated yet.
Yeah, if you look at the WLTP, it should be just under 2. It's going to be between the two of them, so probably around 260, I would say. Around 260 miles of range on a single charge. That would make sense. A 3% increase in output for the rear-wheel drive motor. Yeah, they got the increased range through cooling efficiency improvement, because the battery pack is still a 69 kilowatt hour battery pack for the standard one, and an 82 kilowatt hour battery pack for the extended range one. And yeah, what's up with the twin motors? Okay, instead of having 202 exact 150 kilowatt, they now have an 183 on the rear axle and 117 in the front axle.
And conveniently, it adds up to 300 kilowatts.
Yeah,
the same as before, but
they're geared differently normally. Like having 2 different power, like one is going to be more geared towards like cruising on the highway, where the other one is going to be more for city driving. So you do generally tend to have some efficiency improvements with that.
Yeah,
All
a
right.
lot more range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
good to see these. I mean, one of the bigger complaints about the XC40 and the C40 was the range wasn't nearly as far as Model Y or
Yeah.
even kind of the competitors like from Hyundai and Kia. So it's good to see.
Yeah, and like a lot of these legacy automakers going into EVs, they were big on like on battery buffer and not having like a big efficiency. So if they can do efficiency improvement and not instead just sticking bigger battery pack in there, that's a good trend that we want to keep going that way. All right, that was your post this week, Seth. This you called this BYD a Chinese knockoff of the Bolt EV.
I know. I got some flack for that, and I'm not saying that China is a knockoff manufacturing hub or anything like that. But it just, I mean, if you scroll down a little bit, the
Yeah,
they've
I
done
mean,
a,
yeah, the side viewer definitely right that it does look like it. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's not
yeah,
exact,
look,
but it's also like kind of seems remarkably similar. Anyway, what's interesting about it is that the specs on this, so it costs like just under $9,000 in China, obviously, and they're exporting it to a bunch of places, um, Brazil, Chile, so a bunch of places in Latin America, which is like we know don't get a lot of EVs currently. So that's good to see. So the price is eight or $9,000 at the base level, and they have higher trims and faster trims. But you know what do you get for that? You get about a third of the battery, a little bit more than a third of the battery as a Bolt. So you're talking, or maybe a half the battery. It's like a 30 kilowatt hour battery, and you get about a third of the power, and that's going to be about a 75 horsepower motor, which obviously will get a lot more range out of a smaller battery because um, you're not able to kind of juice it. So these they're talking about 300 kilometers WLTP cycle. So in reality, probably closer to 200 miles. Still pretty solid, like especially for an $8,000 car. And I think one of our commenters was like, this is basically like the Yugo of electric vehicles. Jose Venegas said that. So, uh, for better or worse, like Latin America and other markets that are maybe not uh, used to very expensive cars, uh, they need EVs too. The world needs everybody to go to EV. So good for everyone.
yeah, it's definitely an option in an underserved market. Is city cars. All right, Hertz and Uber have been like these unlikely partners in electrification over the last 2 years, in a big way, really. Since Hertz had this giant order of 100,000 Tesla vehicles that they deployed in North America, and 50,000 of them ended up going to Uber to enable their for the drivers to be able to rent them through Earth so that they can offer the ride sharing services, and that's been a very successful program. Actually, we learned that this week nearly 50,000 Uber drivers have rented Tesla through this program, so they basically all been rented out already. And now they're expanding it to Europe, and they said that they're going to start with 25,000 new electric vehicles going to the European capital cities by 2025, so over the next 2 years. And they said that it's going to include Tesla vehicles and Polestar's vehicles because after the 100,000 Model 3 vehicles, Hertz also added Tesla Model Y vehicles and then the Polestar 2. So the same ones are going to be offered in European cities. So that's great news for electrification. I mean, 25,000 is not a giant number, but I think the big thing too is like a lot of Uber driver, they might like get into it through that, and then decide maybe I want my own vehicle to Uber with electric vehicles, and that creates kind of like a snowball effect, and a lot of ride sharing services are, I think, just gonna go all electric just because it makes so much sense with how much gas savings you get if you're driving a lot, like you do when you're a ride sharing driver.
That's interesting. What GM used to have a company, subsidiary called Maven
Yeah.
that would kind of rent out Chevy Bolts to Uber drivers.
Hmm.
But I think they shut that down.
Yeah.
But it's a good model for a couple of reasons. One, the drivers are like, hey, like electricity is really cheap compared to gas. Like maybe this is something I should really do in real life. But it also makes the barrier to entry a lot lower for Uber drivers. And maybe some Uber drivers don't, maybe they live in New York and they don't own a car, or they don't want to get their car full of passengers or something. So I think it's a good thing all around. And obviously, there's money to be made in that space. So good for that. Good for everyone.
Hmm. All right, let's get to the comments.
All right. Has anyone gotten photos of Tesla semis charge connector? I feel like we've seen something like
I mean,
triangular or
we've
something.
seen the first one that they made, but now Tesla is making it sound like the regular connector is going to be the
Nah.
mega charger connector ultimately.
Yeah, the North American charging standard
Uh,
charger. We'll see if that
yeah.
happens. All right, Andrew C. Question: Does Rivian's financial situation make you guys cautious about buying one? Future service, parts, etc. I mean, that's certainly a concern. The one thing Rivian does have going for them is they have enough cash to get through the next, year or two, but they're not making progress in getting the cost of their vehicles down on a per vehicle basis.
Hmm.
I don't know. What do you think, Fred?
No, exactly that. I mean, I think this next earning is going to be important. I'm going to take a close look at it and see if there's any meaningful improvement in gross margin. And if there's not, with 10,000 vehicle produced last quarter, I think there's going to be some serious questions to ask in terms of do they have the ability to turn this around? Because it's one thing saying like, yeah, they have a ton of cash to last like maybe a year, 2 years of this trend going, but at the same time, now they've been in production for over a year, and we have seen no meaningful improvement in gross margin. No meaningful improvement after a year, and now they achieve f- volume production in many ways. 10,000 vehicle a quarter is decent volume production. So, like, how much more leeway can we give them? That's my
Hmm.
question.
Yeah. All right. Seth Love, uh, probably not what I'm thinking. They have the charger infrastructure set up too. That helps. He's referring to Tesla
Yep. Yep.
having the advantage over the, I guess, legacy automakers.
If you ask me, like in 2000, like 14, 15, do I think that Tesla is going to be the only one still in 2023 to have the only like global charging network? Branded Tesla, branded for the automaker, I would be, nah, that's crazy. Like someone else would catch up at this point. Nope, no one has.
It's crazy. I mean, I guess you could say Volkswagen has the Electrify America network, but not not really. Not catching up anyway. Jesse C. Strand, I've always been disappointed with Subaru. They tell such a great story with very little substance beneath it. They should have been the first to make an electric, in my opinion. I agree. They're about the woods, about being green, about all-wheel drive. It seems like perfect fit.
I think they are. That's a result of their environment, though. Like they are based in Japan, and Japan has had some serious link to hydrogen fuel cells that has slowed down a lot of Japanese companies' commitment to all electric vehicles. Unfortunately.
Richard Kuehl says, "Why can't the new Giga Texas plant do the Midnight Cherry Red or Quicksilver paint jobs like Giga Berlin is doing?" What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would assume that Tesla has invested into the same or similar like advanced paint technology in Texas as they did in Berlin, but apparently not. Otherwise, that would be the case.
Yeah. All right, here's a good question. Did the Bolt really start the price war? It would have
No.
if
Yeah.
GM had made it more compelling and made a million more vehicles, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So
Also, there's just like the price point,
I
it
don't think
was not even already like big competitor to Model 3. Like, so it's making it even much cheaper. It's for like a segment of the buyers that like they're still completely open in the kind of form factor that they want, and like it's because the big thing with the Bolt is like long distance travel is not really it's an option, but it's not convenient.
right. Question: if Tesla has billions saved, should they reduce margins to their cars or do share buybacks? In my opinion, for growth, cut prices plus open their supercharging network. What do you think?
So for growth, uh, like I mean, for cut prices, cut prices doesn't make sense with their cash on end. Like cash on end is just like you're not gonna use your cash on end to give discounts on the cars. As for growth and uh, the charging network, like Tesla, the thing with Tesla is like I believe then when Elon Musk says we are spending our cash as fast as we can do it efficiently. It's hard to spend on much cash Tesla is making. Like Tesla is spending a lot of cash every quarter. Like Tesla is the billions and billions of dollars in expenditure. So that's hard to spend efficiently. Like if you just say, okay, like we have $20 billion cash right now, like, this quarter we just spend an extra 5 billion on a bunch of things. It's like that 5 billion won't get you 5 billion worth of thing because you won't be able to efficiently spend that cash during that quarter, during that period of time. So no, I think well, a share buyback program would make sense because of like just how low the shares are. Uh, Obviously, at the same time, it feels like it's only compensating for Elon selling shares, so it kind of feels weird in that sense that using company money to counter a huge impact that the CEO himself had that the company by selling. So there's something kind of sketchy about that. I don't think there's anything like illegal about it or anything like that, but I just it doesn't feel right to me. But I don't know, maybe like dividends or I don't know, something like that would make sense just to like compensate the shareholders who had a tough year.
Yeah. All right. All right. Getting to politics. Is there any good data on the number of liberal leaning customers of Tesla? With California being the biggest market, it would seem to be like it's pretty high. I think it's pretty high. I would
Mhm.
say 70% probably lean liberal, if not higher. What do you think?
I mean, you did send me like a survey about that this week that
Right.
shared something around those percentages you just gave, and they said like there was no meaningful change on the conservative side, at least. So, meaning that while Tesla has definitely alienated some liberals, it has not gained conservative to compensate for it. But that survey was extremely limited. I look at the methodology, and it was like I don't know, like a few hundred people. It was nothing crazy. So, I don't know. Like you said, I mean, Tesla's biggest market is California, which is obviously a more liberal state, and so also just for personal experience, I would say that though they are conservative people that just like they want a great car, and
For sure.
Tesla sells great cars, so like and they're not like as long as they're not closed up to the idea of electric vehicles, which a lot of conservative are,
Mm.
just from unfortunately the way they consume news.
Yep.
They consume news from places that have been more willing to take money from oil companies and share misinformation over the years. That has been less of the case lately, uh, and that's a good thing. But the impact is still being felt. I was talking to someone about it earlier this week. Like she was telling me, one of her friends, she was describing like why he didn't like electric cars and everything. It was and literally like everything she was listing that he was saying was like all points that have been proven misinformation by oil companies. So you see that impact is still there for a lot of people that we
Right.
need to counter that. Otherwise, it will slow down electrification. And it has, and it still is slowing it down.
Agree. All right. John Ketchagas. There are 18-inch aftermarket rims that fit over the Model 3 performance brakes.
Hey,
Uh,
hey, send that my way, John.
yeah, where's the
Give me a
link, dude?
link. Give me a link. Oh, maybe we're not allowed links. So give me the name of the company or something.
Yeah,
I'll check
something,
that out.
anything.
I'll check
Write it
that
out.
out.
All right, Jonathan Root. When QAnon conspiracies are more important than the mission of clean transport, you've been duped by the algorithm.
But yeah,
That's
Elon has been duped by an algorithm that he now owns.
right. Stefan Frockjar, a lot of interesting vowels there. Well, the break story just to show that Tesla is trying to make more money for themselves, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of cost cutting from Tesla. That's what I wrote in an article, like removing like the lumbar support on the passenger side and the ultrasonic sensor and all that. Like those are all things that people like raise eyebrows at because like it seems like unnecessary. And that's one of them. Like okay, like they probably save a few bucks on this, but Model Y performance was probably already like the biggest gross margin that they had right now. So kind of felt unnecessary.
Yep. All right. So our Elon Tesla only tweet bot apparently has been created and using Python code and Chat GPT. So that's very exciting. We'll just
Yeah,
take that link whenever you have it.
yeah.
Fun fact: this is actually interesting if it's true, and we need to see evidence.
Mhm.
If you end up canceling delivery of your Tesla, wait until the last minute. You'll get a coupon for $200 off or a free charger. If anybody wants to try this and send
Mhm.
us a video of that happening, we would love to write a
Yeah,
story on it.
yeah,
Hopefully hopefully we can get some people some chargers and some
yeah.
cash. I guess. Jesse C. Strand, why would Volvo have a car with a much smaller range compared to others? I love the C40, but I can go much further in my Model Y, which keeps me from changing. I agree. I think Volvo does all the things that kind of new EV companies do. They have a huge battery buffer. They probably don't do the optimistic mileage that companies like Tesla have started to employ. The C40 and the XC40 are not terribly aerodynamic cars. They're kind of chonky in the front, so they could
They're
probably work.
high too, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they're high and they have big tires as well, which is great for stuff like off road or other things, but not super aerodynamic. So they didn't kind of bend to those things. But Volvo's making the right moves, and I'm actually really excited to see the what is that, the EX90. That
Yeah.
car looks really nice.
Hmm.
Um, okay, here's a not best question: is Tesla Shanghai exposed to the China demographic crisis? And I think that is the China demographic crisis is Elon tweeting about China's population no longer growing, uh, which which I think is probably a little silly to equate. So, what do you think?
I mean, well, specifically to the Shanghai, like the factory, or like you mean the market? Like obviously, if the population is not growing, the market is not growing, so like,
Yeah,
that will have an impact on any company. But I don't know why Tesla Shanghai particularly. I'm not sure.
yeah, I think maybe we're running out of workers to throw at this thing.
Yeah,
Any guess when someone brings an EV like the BYD Seagull to the U.S. market with lower price than a Civic or Corolla? Who and when? I mean, a Corolla. So I just looked up the Corolla's like 21 something, and the Civic starts at 25. We've already got the Chevy Bolt.
yeah.
Set. It's already done. It's happened.
Cost of ownership gets even cheaper than that, and yeah, I mean, can like if you're talking specifically about the BYD Seagull, Candy tried to do it in the
Oh
U.S.
yeah, I
at one
forgot
point,
about
but
that.
that didn't work out.
Yeah, I think by the time you do all the things like airbags and making cars quite safe and giving them reasonable power and range, then you start getting up to 25,000. So I think the Bolt is probably the best you're going to get for a little while. How would you compare Rivian's challenges to Tesla's ramp in the 2017-2019 production hell phase? Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's the good question, obviously. However, like you cannot compare it perfectly because if you compare just the production, again, Tesla had already been able to build a car with a positive gross margin in volume and similar volume as Rivian is doing right now, and that car was the Model S. So now 2017, 2019, that was a Model 3 the issue, and that was a whole new volume level that Tesla was trying to achieve. And yeah, there was a ton of issues, and Tesla was on the brink of bankruptcy during that time. Uh, had a lot less cash on hand than Rivian around that time. That's true also. But Tesla was much quicker to turn a positive gross margin, even though they didn't turn a positive net profit around that time. Gross margin was positive, and we're just not seeing that from Rivian, not even close. So yeah, we need to see something happen.
All right, here's something that I think a lot of people are thinking right now. I now have to separate the car, Tesla, from the man, Elon. I love the car, but sometimes cringe when Elon says stuff. Here's
Yeah.
an informal thing. What if you had a bumper sticker to put on your car and it said, I bought this car before Elon went full Elon. Would that be
Or I love the car, but I don't support Elon and stuff like that. Because
right?
maybe people are still buying the car, and even without wanting to encourage Elon.
Yeah.
Like I would not like if you're in the market for a good EV right now and you have the budget to buy within Tesla. I'm not recommending Tesla because of the CEO is saying some stupid things on social media. Uh, it's still I think the best option, especially with the price drop. Like especially if you can get one of those like Gigafactory Texas Model Y at like $50,000 before tax credit, man. If you can get like a 43, 44, $45,000 Model Y, that's a good deal right there.
Yep. All right. Here's a quick one on Tesla Model Y order page. It says $7,500 federal tax credit is in effect for deliveries until March 2023. Is that accurate? Please share your thoughts. Well, it's until March 2023 when the battery chemistry thing kicks in, and that
Yeah, or at least they're gonna release the guidance for it. Like it was supposed to kick in this month, but they haven't made clear exactly how that's gonna work, the requirements. So IRS is supposed to give an update, and basically there's a 3 months grace period happening right now where you don't they don't have to get into the weeds about the battery pack in order to get the full tax credit. So yes, it is accurate, and it might still keep the 7500 past March, or it might not. That will depend on what the IRS say in terms of the needy greedy stuff regarding the both the battery materials requirements and also the battery manufacturing requirements.
all right. Norm SM says Wall Street Journal published today that Elon's December Tesla stock sale might trigger SEC investigation. We seen that one yet?
Yeah, I've seen it, and it's a lot of conjuncture, to be honest. Uh, it's basically claiming that Elon might have knowledge that Tesla had some issues with demand, but Tesla has never even acknowledged demand issues anyway. So it's not
Right.
like, so yeah, it's hard to tell really, and also it's not like Elon was selling stocks before the demand issue became more clear to the market and led to further drop in price. He didn't do it to like save himself a few bucks on that. He did it because Twitter was losing a ton of money and didn't have any revenue and was about to go bankrupt. So he needed to funnel a few $1 billion through it. And the only way he can do that is by selling Tesla stock. So even if there is an SEC investigation, it's gonna found that Elon didn't do it maliciously. He did it because he had no other option. And the guy is like, I don't like how Elon is selling his stocks to Tesla and funneling the money to Twitter. I think it's dumb. I think is his idea that he can turn Twitter into this beacon of free speech is completely delusional. I think that at best you can make Twitter a less fucked up place, but you'll never make it a place where like good discourse happen. There might be some good discourse, but 99% of Twitter will always be nonsense, in my opinion. You can maybe get that down to like 95%, but like, is that making a beacon of free speech? I don't think so. But he's still completely allowed to sell stocks in Tesla and funnel it to the like garbage fire that is Twitter. There's nothing illegal about that.
Yeah.
If there's anyone at fault around this issue, is the board, is Tesla's board, where Tesla should have communicated to investors that they were having some demand issues, but they decided not to.
All right, last comment. Oliver Guirino says earlier today a video on Tesla's YouTube channel was released. Informative short piece about the heat pump. Would like to see more stuff of that. Coincides with increased activity of Tesla on socials. We were actually
Hmm.
just talking about that before the show. I
Yeah,
agree. Uh,
but you know what I think that is though,
but
because Tesla released a video in China, very similar video, just a few
right,
days prior. So I think Tesla is just like recycling like the work of Tesla China PR, basically. I think
yeah, but
that's
I
what's
mean,
happening.
well, I don't know if they're recycling it, but they're kind of riffing on it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, that's
Uh,
it for
maybe
comments.
one last question from William. Thank
Okay.
you. Are you guys satisfied with the Tesla semi specs and data? No, we discussed that a bit before, but no, we would like to have a bit more data in terms of the weight of the tractor, the exact weight of the tractor itself, so we can stop speculating with the cargo capacity. That would be nice. We know that Tesla has a limit of 82,000, like any Class 8 electric trucks, but to know the exact cargo capacity, we know to know the weight of the truck plus the weight of the trailer. So we don't have that. That's the big thing missing. And then we'd like to know an update on the price. I don't think that is the same price that was announced in 2017, but we don't have anything on that. So that's it. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for listening right now. If you're still listening an hour and 1 minute to the show, we appreciate you greatly. You're one of the real ones. And we're gonna see you same time, same place next week. Have a great one, guys. Stay safe this weekend. Bye bye.